Hi, I'm Angie from Five Little Monkeys. In today's series, we're going to talk about large rulers. So when I go to shows, one of the biggest questions I get is, what in the world do I do with a ruler this long? It will help you trim up quilts that are on point. The combination of both the Yardstick and this giant 18-inch square Quilter Select ruler help me do those things. So in this series, we're going to talk about putting quilts on point. We're going to talk about straightening up edges. We're going to talk about how to do the math and how to get very accurate points and make sure that everything matches so that you get a really pleasing end result. So here we go. Now in this portion of the series, we are going to talk about how to straighten a quilt that's put on point. So if you haven't put a quilt on point yet, you can make a really amazing design element that way. The math gets a little bit confusing, but if you have a good pattern, you shouldn't really have to do that much math. That's how this pattern is. So this is a kit that we will have on our website if we don't have it yet by the time this video comes out. Isn't this fabric cool? So the way you cut this, it makes mirrored images of your stripe. Then we went and put the whole quilt on point. So I will link in this video the kits if they're still available. But I thought this was a really good time to teach you guys how to put something on point and float it. Now, if your pattern calls for setting triangles like this, what I do when I do mine is I make them just a little bigger. And the reason for that is, one, you don't have to be as accurate when you piece it. Two, you can float your design. So if you have extra fabric out here, you can either cut it right to the point right there, or you can float it a little bit and have a little inside border. That's not what this video is about, but that just gives you an extra design option. Since that is not the way this pattern is written, we're not going to do that, but it's just extra information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my quilt and I'm going to kind of roll it up so that gravity's not pulling it off the table. I'm going to roll it the long way because I'm going to cut the first side the long way. It doesn't really matter which side you cut it because you're going to cut it all the same. All right, so I'm going to roll this up so that all I have to work with is what I care about, which is this side of my quilt. So do you see how I have these setting triangles out here? That's what lets your quilt sit on point. But now I need to square them up. So I will always straighten up the long parts of my quilt before I ever worry about the inside. Now, when I'm doing the inside point here, I like to use a square that is large enough that I can use both sides as a reference. All right, now you want to make sure your squares are really straight. So I'm going to take my square ruler and I'm going to line my 1/4 inch up with this point and that point. Now here's an extra hot tip about these rulers. The top line of my number is the 1/4 inch. So if you're using this side, if you're using a square ruler and you don't have a reference point where you don't see the little tick line, the square numbers are your 1/4 inch. So you can use those as a 1/4 inch line, but honestly, the thing I care more about is that my cut line is lining up with the edge of my square, all right? Because your ruler is always going to be straighter than what your eyes can see. So now I have this very pleasing viewpoint of the corner of my quilt that's on point. All right, so now we're going to trim up the other 2 sides and the other 3 corners, and you can just enjoy the fun. So there is our perfectly squared up quilt on point. Look how pretty that looks. And it was a little bit of a hot mess when I started, but now it looks gorgeous. There you go. I hope you enjoyed our series on what to do with these giant rulers. What you do is you make you look good. That's what they do. So if there's more things you would like demos on, drop a note in the comments. Let us know.